This is BoomerLife on CL 650.
And welcome back to the show. We're speaking with the SnoreDentist. That's right. We have our guest on, Charnel Muir, who's a specialist in, what would you call the devices? What do you put in someone's mouth when they're sleeping?
Well, we actually just call them oral appliances.
Oral appliances.
But they have several names. They can be called mandibular repositioning devices.
Wow. Say that 5 times fast.
Ooh. Yeah, or mandibular advancement devices, or they have any number of names. So if you look at the research or for some
mandible,
patients.
I'm going to get into it. Mandible is your jaw.
Yep.
And then it repositions it forward.
Forward.
And that allows the airways to open up.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah.
And that's really what you're trying to achieve here.
Yeah,
and
keeping that airway open so they can breathe.
And the knack to what you do is picking the right device for the individual,
That's right.
And fitting it.
Yeah, so there's about 75 different devices out there that are approved right now. Some have more durability than others. Some have more adjustability than others. Some fit different types of patients, different types of material they're made out of. So there's lots of different choices, and picking that right one for that patient, and then try to figure out where that jaw really should be.
And in the first show we did together, you mentioned that it's not a lot that you're moving the lower jaw forward. It's how much? Describe it for us.
Yeah, most lower jaws, on average, will move front to back about 10 millimeters.
So 1 centimeter.
Yeah, and we start most patients about halfway, so maybe 5 millimeters forward. Mm-hmm. It's not a large movement. And
so you're saying during the day your jaw will move that much anyway?
Especially, with patients that come in and they have an overbite already, if they bring their jaw forward to bite into an apple or sandwich, that's pretty well where we're going to start them. Yeah.
I'm just doing that now.
You're
right, your jaw. Or you crack your ears, with your jaw.
Yeah.
Your jaw does move around quite a bit. All right, we're going to get into this study. So what's the study called again?
Okay, so the study is actually called the Spousal Support Snories Survey. It was a report.
I just want to say, it does sound funny.
I know.
And I think that's society's way of dealing with snoring. It's kind of like it's a bit of a lark. Oh, my husband or my wife snores. But they don't take it seriously, right?
Right.
And that's what this study is getting at.
Is that, if we took it seriously, for the person that has to suffer beside them is the biggest issue. But you're right. I mean, if you Google comedic snoring, you will get, I don't know how many pages of YouTube videos of comedians talking about it and skits about it. I'm sure there's a Saturday Night Live skit about it. I mean, snoring is kind of a comic thing that we talk about in society.
It's a punchline,
Yeah. But it's causing some problems, and not just in health, but in family discord, right?
Yeah. Okay, so what is the first thing you want to talk about in this study?
Well, we do believe that about 50% of the population snores. And
I'm in that camp, yeah.
There you go. And about 30% are in that habitual, I snore no matter what stage. And just because it's common, and we talked about this last month too, I'm sorry to insult you, but just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal.
So I'm special.
So you're special, yeah. But when they did the survey, they found that 83% of the patients they surveyed had said at one time they'd had at least a snoring bed partner. Like, that's a high volume of people that are being exposed to something that's probably disrupting their sleep. And they found a lot of things about it. They asked those people that were sleeping with the snorer, what has it caused? What was your reaction to that? And interesting that we didn't expect, almost 50% of people were actually worried about the person who was snoring because there was maybe some pauses in their breath or gasping or things like that. So these people are having to stay up all night worried about who their bed partner is and their spouse. So they're not sleeping at all because now they're awake watching these people.
Has anybody done a study into the anthropology of snoring? Like, why do we snore? Because the body has all of these functions for reasons. We do all these things for a certain, that happen maybe thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
Why do we snore, do you think?
Well,
Was it to keep the lions away? I mean, you think about that, lying in the Serengeti plains, snoring away to keep the bad
no, it's
critters
not
away.
like a beating drum. No. Now, I don't have a lot of the research with me today, but what I can tell you is that there is a belief that as we've evolved, snoring has become more prevalent, that we didn't snore back then.
You probably were thinner. Yeah.
We may have been thinner, but we also had different heads. Our jaws were larger. For instance, our jaws used to fit our wisdom teeth.
Exactly. We take our wisdom teeth out now.
So now we commonly will take our wisdom teeth out because the jaws have shrunk over time.
Probably because we have cooked food or we didn't.
Processed foods is the number one thing. When they look back at, they have studied this in the Aboriginal population in Australia. Australia is quite well known for their research and development in sleep apnea. But when they studied the Aboriginals, they noticed that when they introduced processed foods, they started to develop some of the modern day ailments. Right? So we used to fit our wisdom teeth in. We'd get a first set of molars when we were 6. We'd get a second set of molars when we were 12. We'd get a third set of molars at 18, and some mammoth elephant would eat us when we were 25. So that's all we needed, right? But so there's the other thing that we know is that the airway that we breathe through, the pharynx, it's a large collapsible tube with no skeletal support. And we're one of the few creatures that has that.
Really?
But that also enables us to speak. So by creating the large tube where the air can pass from the vocal cords through, we develop speech. But we also ended up with a large collapsible tube.
That causes snoring.
That causes all sorts of things. Yeah.
I hadn't asked you that before, and I thought, well, what we must do it for some reason, but that's the best guess, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
we've actually evolved into it, sadly.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, pick up on the study. I thought we sidetracked there a little bit.
So, on top of this snoring, and now we got people watching people that are snoring and they're worried about them. 35% of the people that we surveyed said that they couldn't sleep. The snoring was so disruptive, they just couldn't sleep. And I'll often hear that from patients. They'll say, my husband or wife is fine as long as they go to sleep first.
That's what my wife says. Yeah. Exactly that.
So I have to go to bed after them, which is a problem if there's shift work.
And the other problem is if you've had something to drink, you can fall asleep right away.
Yes.
You go into bed and you pass out. Not literally, but you know what I mean. You fall asleep quickly, and then they're lying there while you're snoring away.
Yes, sawing the log, so to speak. Yeah. And they just will never be able to get to sleep then, right? And 21% actually leave the room. Like even though they're still sleeping together technically, which unfortunately happens to many people, they're not, but they wish they could, or they actually do get up and leave the room because they just can't sleep, and they need their sleep as well.
And that means if you're living in a one-bedroom condo, you're on the sofa. Yeah. It's not exactly a good night's sleep either.
Not at all. No.
But shouldn't that be the elbow and the ribs, and then you go sleep on the sofa?
Many try, and but they'll often just get up and leave, just out of frustration. But 26% of those that we surveyed that were the snoring spouse said they were downright angry. Like they would get angry. They're not getting their sleep. They're not getting enough rest. They're whatever sleep they're getting isn't of good quality or enough of it, and they're really angry about it. Yeah,
I could see that, especially night after night after night.
Yeah, especially imagine you have children, so whatever sleep you do get is precious, and then you try to go to sleep, and the snoring is so loud that you can't even get there.
So you've been up, changing diaper, feeding baby, getting the baby back to sleep, then you get into bed and can't fall asleep.
Yeah. So it does. It really affects people a lot. Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, we did find, interestingly enough, that 39% said snoring was a turnoff. They said, you know what?
You're not doing
not
it for
attractive
me.
to me when you can snore like that. Interestingly, in the baby boomer generation, that goes up to almost 50%. 50% of our baby boomers they just don't think that it's very sexy when you snore.
Well, it's also because the baby boomers are of the age where they're snoring the most.
Yeah. So there's more of them doing it, obviously, because snoring is definitely worsens with age. And so, yeah, that can be a problem for them.
It's not gender specific, though, is it? Like, what would you say the ratio of men to women snoring?
Yeah, it's not gender exclusive.
Exclusive, yeah.
Yes, but it is more prominent in men. So we think it's probably 2 to 3 men to every 1 woman until menopause. And then women we actually have some studies that say women's snoring rate will double after menopause. So in our boomer generation, there'll be a lot more snoring women than there used to be.
Well, that might be the turnoff is the other way around.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
Because it's acceptable for guys to snore.
It's funny,
and then
isn't
for
it?
women, it's not considered feminine, maybe.
It's not, and they're more embarrassed by it.
Yeah.
My women patients are much more embarrassed by snoring than men are.
Well, I joke. I say, well, I don't snore. I've never heard it because I'm asleep. It's a joke. That's what I said at the beginning. I mean, it's a bit of a lark, right?
Yeah.
Oh, guys snore. Ha, 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 I snore. But for women, that must be mortifying at some point.
It is. Yeah, it really is, and they're horrified by it. And as you mentioned already, that, well, now I'm divorced and I'm going to start dating again, and that would just be horrible.
Or a couple's getaway, you rent a chalet at Whistler for the weekend, and now the other couple knows that it's not the husband, it's the wife that snores.
That's right. Or the girlfriend's trip to Vegas.
Right.
Or, I'll often...
But what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Well, I know, but they won't go back with you.
That's true.
They won't, once you've gone through the other 3 of the 4, that's what I find with the golf groups. So you're the short stick, and so you're the short straw, and you'll go through all 3 of the other golfers in the group, and then you won't get invited back the following year because none of them can sleep in the same room with you. Yeah. So it can definitely limit that type of fun vacation for sure.
Now, what's the reaction after they've come to you and been fitted with the oral device and they can get back to those activities again? They must be thrilled.
Thrilled. Well, not only that, but they actually realize they feel better, right? So there's lots of things that snoring can cause. Like it can cause a sore throat in the morning. You can have a headache in the morning. You can be tired from it. People just don't know that.
Well, you have a graph that you brought here of all the things that sleep apnea affects, how it affects your body.
Yeah.
And we're going to go through some of those. And because what exactly is sleep apnea? What is the course of treatment typically? How it doesn't work for some people and how they end up with you as a way of treating it. We are speaking with the SnoreDentist. And you have Snore Doctor on your license. I should maybe stop saying that because people will come up to you now. They'll honk at you. Hey, Snore Doctor. Dr. Charnel Muir is my guest in North Vancouver, but you do travel around other parts of from the island to Greater Vancouver, even into the interior. We'll find out more about the SnoreDentist after the break.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.